It's gonna be a little something more. I've got a plan in mind, a special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play. 'Cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold, a rabbit's foot or to be told. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day.
Hello, my friends. Happy Tuesday. I hope you are having a peaceful and calm Tuesday evening. I say this because I think everyone should have a peaceful and calm Tuesday evening, but also because my Tuesday evening hasn't gotten calm yet. So I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so excited to have my special guest with me today. This has been a long time in the making. We were just chatting about really how long it feels like it's been since we started talking about having her on my show. But Sofia Adler is my guest tonight. She is a transition and realignment coach and astrologer who supports practical, ambitious, and spiritually curious humans start prioritizing themselves as much as they prioritize their success. Sofia uses a holistic, whole person approach in her work, thanks to her master's in psychology and coaching training from Columbia University, astrology education, and mindfulness meditation teacher certification. So, with that, I'm going to welcome Sofia on. Hi, Sofia.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am so happy you are here. And I'm so happy to just be in this space of calm with you. There's something very calming about you. And I appreciate that so much, especially today.
Well, thank you. I'm so touched. To be honest, I've gotten that before, and it means a lot to me every time I hear it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I was just reflecting, um, you live in a place where they have really good Mexican food, don't you?
I do. And I would say even better than Mexican food is New Mexican food. So until I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, I didn't know. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. I grew up in Manhattan. And I didn't know that there was like a New Mexican cuisine. I didn't know about the love of chili and all the things. But yeah, we have good Mexican and we have really good New Mexican as well.
Nice. I'm thinking about that because I had some not great Mexican for dinner tonight. And it was one of those like, let's take my burrito and like pick it apart and eat the parts that are like edible.
Bad
And then
Mexican's bad.
yeah, and then not want a box. And I hate leaving food on my plate, but it was not food that was worth bringing home.
Mm. Yeah, I feel you. I used to be really stringent about not throwing out food and I would like save everything. And if I had something in the fridge and I couldn't figure out how to use it, I would like freak out. And I've recently gotten to a point where I don't look to waste food or throw out food, but if I have an easier time parting with it if it's not gonna be for me.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Hard for
Yeah,
me.
totally. Totally. Um, all right. So I would love to hear your story. You're born and bred New Yorker, but now you live really far away from New York. So what can you tell us about here to there and what that journey has been like for you?
Oh, yeah, such a good question. I mean, I'll just say to anyone who's looking to make a leap or make a transition, I never could have predicted that this would be my life in so many ways. If you had asked me, like 18-year-old me, or even me, well, at this point, I moved in 2020. So I'm getting up there in time I left. But if you had asked me like 5, 6, 7 years ago, like, oh, guess what? Like, you're going to be an astrologer and use astrology in your coaching practice and you're going to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the desert and like look out your window and see mountains and trees. I actually have no idea what I would have said, but I definitely would have been like, no, that's not it. Santa Fe is not random in that I grew up coming to Santa Fe. My parents brought me here from 9 months old to about 6. I have 0 memory of it because of the age. Um, and I landed here based on intuition and kismet, honestly, and a little bit of practicality. I had a place to stay for free for the first 2 months, and so that kinda got me there. But, my story is really propelled by this constant feeling that there was something more out there for me. I had this nagging voice, like nagging. It was annoying. Like I just always, I'm really fortunate. I had a great upbringing. I went to a great school in New York. I went to college. I had internships. I went to graduate school, and I was kind of, to nobody's fault, but I was kind of promised that story. You work hard, you go to school, you get the job, you have the apartment, you have the friends, like you make the money and you will have it, whatever it is, right? You'll have fulfillment, you'll have success. Like that's what you're aiming for. Um and I know my story is not unique in that I did all the things and I got to where I was supposed to go and I was so unsatisfied and unhappy and in hindsight looking back, I learned that comfort is not the same as happiness. I was living in New York City. I know my way around that place like the back of my hand. New York is already a melting pot. And I had so many people there that I knew, and all my family's still there. And there was just this voice that kept being like, there's more out there for you. There's got to be more than this. Like, this is it, really? Um, my parents got divorced, which was really hard for me as an only child. And I imagine it's hard for a lot of kids whose parents divorce. And that inspired me to start my own spiritual practice and journey. So I started by meditating. I think the reason that I give off a calm demeanor is that I've been a meditator for over a decade. Um, Spicy New Yorker Sophia, who does also still exist within this person, but she would be fascinated by that. My story isn't special in that I just went out on a quest to feel better. I wanted more. I knew there was more out there. I didn't know what it looked like, but I took the leap anyway. And so started my own spiritual practice, ended up going to graduate school, got my master's in psychology from Columbia University with a concentration in mind body practice. A mouthful, I know. But I went back to graduate school because I wanted to understand the mind through what is largely, I would say, like the dominant way to understand the way we think and our mindset. Um, I had my own more traditional coaching business for a while, mindset and leadership coaching. As you so eloquently read in my bio, I'm a meditation teacher. I got certified in coaching, did that in part through Columbia and other programs. I have all the things. Um, and even after I graduated from grad school, which I thought would be the thing to answer the nag of there's more. Oh, like there's more. No, there's more. Um, Spoiler alert, finished graduate school, had more questions than answers, was not, still felt like there was something missing. So I did something that was very unlike me at the time and unlike a lot of my clients who are also driven and practical and ambitious. And I did something for fun. I just sparked my creativity. I signed up for an astrology class on a whim. Excuse me. And the rest is history. Never expected to be an astrologer, never, ever expected to do this work. My friends are lawyers and doctors and HR professionals and museum docents. And, I am lovingly the spiritual one or the odd one or whatever we want to call it, the fun one. I'm the only entrepreneur. And I really feel like astrology found me. I feel like it happened to me, and that voice has never come back. What I have found from incorporating more traditional practices like mindset work and emotional support work and all those things, that to me that addresses the human. But what astrology offers is it addresses the soul. It addresses the part of us that can't be that is too big for mindset shifts and, you know, thought hacks and positive thing. Like there's just something bigger, right? I am also a journaler. Journaler. Did I say that right? Am I
Yep.
missing a syllable? I said it right. I'm a
Yep.
journaler.
Journaler.
Um, and I've experienced that in my journaling as well. You access a part of you, a part of the mind that lives beyond the logical and the reasonable and the practical. And I think we need both. I think that only spirituality, only astrology isn't grounded enough. And I think that only practical, logical, mindset based personal growth work, traditional, corporate support, if you will, I think that you're missing the whole human. I think that's why a lot of people feel a void. So I like to marry the two so that people feel like they really know themselves, um, and can be themselves. But I always say there's like 8 billion people in the world. We don't need more of anybody else. We need you.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love
how
that.
that's like, I think, a kind of long-winded, but yet summarized story of my journey.
I love that. And I love especially what you just said. The world has so many people in it. We just need to be ourselves.
Hmm.
Like that is a message that I don't think we can hear enough.
Yeah.
Because I know I have spent most of my life trying to be what I thought I was expected to be or what I thought I should be. And the more I embrace who I am, like the best of who I am, but
Yeah.
also just who I am, that's when the magic happens because I get to be the magic when I'm completely authentically me in all the best ways.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's a waste of time and energy to spend or to expend so much effort feeling guilty or bad all the time. Like think about how common it is and how often it happens to beat yourself up over who you should be or how you should think or what you should look like. And, I think that this is part of just being a human being. We're wired for survival. And part of that is, wired for community and connection. Um, but what if we didn't have to feel bad all the time? Like, what if you had an explanation on an energetic level for who you are and how you think and what makes you tick and why that thing always pisses you off and you can't stop crying at the commercial? Like, um, the biggest feedback that I would say that I get from my clients when it comes to astrology and that I've experienced in my own life is validation and affirmation. Like, no, you are not messing up your life. No, you don't need to be different. Yes, this is right. Yes, what you feel makes sense. There's so much questioning and self doubt that's present in the human experience. And I have yet to find a better tool than astrology to help really quiet that for people.
Yeah. So, can you take a step back for people
Yes.
who are listening, who maybe think astrology is very hokey, or they think of like reading the horoscopes in the newspaper, which, I don't know anyone whose horoscope has ever come true. So, like, can you tell us what astrology actually is?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So, in the most simple way that I can explain it, astrology is the study of what's happening up there with the planets and how it influences what's happening down here with us, both on a personal level as individuals and also on a collective level. Um, Astrology is not woo woo, astrology is an energy practice. Astrology has been around since the BC era. Mesopotamians use astrology, Egyptians use astrology. Astrology used to be reserved for royals because they didn't want everybody to have access to this information. I would say it's relatively recently that astrology has really found its heyday, if you will, like um its popularity. But make no mistake, astrology has been around forever. People having a desire to understand the world through a different lens, a different language, that has been around forever. People looking for a connection to something bigger than them, whether it be faith, spirituality, religion, that's been around forever. Um, I will say this. I've done hundreds and hundreds of readings. I've never, ever met somebody that doesn't resonate with their birth chart. And I am not doing readings just for, the hokey spiritual folks. I'm doing readings for bankers. I'm doing readings for lawyers. I'm doing readings for teachers. I'm doing readings for, ad executives. I think that it's cool, especially, we met through the space of LinkedIn. I think it's cool, especially in those spaces, for astrology to be like, oh God. But underneath, way more people are into it than you would think. The other thing that I would just note again of, well, can I really wrap my head around this? Like, is there actually a connection of like what's happening up there and how it influences us down here? Farmers have been using astrology and the movement of the planets forever, right? Like it's well known that you pull crops on the full moon. Like the full moon affects water, it affects the tides. And so these practices have really been used forever, but just to kind of zone out what I really like to use astrology for, what I think the magic of this practice is it helps you see, it confirms really what quantum physicists have been saying forever, which is that the universe is alive, that everything is connected, that we are all energy, like you zoom in on an atom and it's not still, it's vibrating. And ask any scientist, they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, like this is all energy. Like there's more than what we see. Astrology happens to be a tool that looks at the planets in relationship to us as a way to really express that. And I'll also just say, like, I am not an astrologer that looks to convince people. That's not what I think you're asking, but more just for people listening. I think that there's also permission slip to take astrology loosely and to explore it and to get curious and to see, do I like this? Do I resonate with it? Do I feel that? Does this help me? Because, I'm the first person to say, if you don't like it, if it doesn't support you, if it doesn't help, don't use it. Like, skip it. But that's really what astrology is. It's a different framework and language, more energetically based, for understanding yourself and also understanding, present day and what's happening on a collective level. My favorite is teachers always come to me on the full moon and are like, my kids are insane. What is happening? Hospitals usually have more blood in the blood banks on full moons because they expect more accidents. They expect people to be more riled. It shows up in a lot more places than you would think. And yes, I don't read my horoscope. Like, I think, to your point, I think there's also a lot of astrology that's been commercialized that really has lost the essence of what it's all about. Was that, I'm like so deep in this now. I'm always like, did I answer the question? Is that simple and easy to understand in layman's terms for folks?
I think so. Which sparks a follow-up question, which
Great.
is like, how do like you talk about what's going on up there affecting us down here, but
Yeah.
how do we know? Like,
Mm.
how do we know where our stuff is or what we are? Because I know it's birth date, birthplace.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you explain?
So a birth chart. So I should say this. There's two different branches of astrology for these purposes. There's the study of you and your energy and how you work and how you tick. And then there's the study of what's happening in present day. Okay. So the question that you're asking, like, how do I know what my stuff is? Like, how do I know like what my sign is, what my birth chart is, all that? That's determined by your moment of birth. Because an astrology chart is a picture of where all the planets were in the sky when you were born. We're using that energetic like pinpoint to glean information about your own energy. So that's why astrologers will ask you your date of birth with some extras. When were you born? Where were you born? And what time were you born? Because, it's 6:20 my time. It's 8:20 your time. It's different from our vantage point on Earth, where the planets are in the solar system is different. So we get hyper specific. And again, I'm looking at a picture, a moment when you were born. And really what I'm doing is I'm reading the energy of that time and using it to distill information about your energy. And what I would say to people, if you're new to astrology, one, work with a professional. There's so much BS out there. Two, get curious. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, oh, well, I have to know, like, this is what it says about me, so this is who I am. No, you are nuanced. The energy is nuanced. Take the best and leave the rest. But ultimately, like, where to get started is to get curious. It's like, oh, I am in a Gemini. Like, here are some qualities of Gemini. What is that? Like, do I see that show up for me? What does that open up for me? Have I been hiding this part of me for so long? It's the first step is to get curious always.
I love that because I'm a huge fan of following my curiosity and
Mm.
truly believe that when I do, my life is so much more interesting. I'm led down the right paths, I meet the right people. Um, but I also liked what you said about take the best and leave the rest. Um,
Mhm.
so I was born in May 19th, which makes me a
Right.
Taurus.
Yep.
And the thing I remember hearing when I was growing up is like, oh, Amanda's stubborn. Oh, she's a Taurus, right? Like, and I remember thinking, well, I'm not stubborn, stubbornly so. And it just never felt complete. Like the
Mm.
highlights never felt complete.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of stuff. So before our conversation, I pulled up my birth chart
Ooh,
just to
tell
take
me.
a look. So, what are the parts that are like the most important to pay attention to?
Great question. So, in an ideal, like 100% perfect world, we look at all of it because I would say a healthy chart is one in which all parts of you are expressed. The image that I always like to use for people is like a stone, right? Like what makes a diamond beautiful is not necessarily the raw stone itself. If you've ever seen a raw diamond that hasn't been cut, it's kind of whatever. But then you cut it and they put, the different etches and it shines beautifully. So, what I love about that is it really emphasizes, oh, there's a lot of different parts to you and we want to shine light on all of them. That being said, the place where I always like to start with people is your sun, your moon, and your rising sign, which is also sometimes called your ascendant. So that chart you pulled might call it an ascendant. But that's what's known as like the big three. It's known to be the character of your chart. And there's so much just within that big three to chew on for a long time, to get curious about for a long time.
I love that. So I'm a huge I'm a huge believer that if a little's good, all of it's better. And if I can do it all and have it done yesterday, that's like the super best. So like when I'm so glad you said like, just looking at this one piece or this little section can give you so much because I see something like my chart and I'm like, I want to know what this is. And I haven't even digested, this part before I'm diving into the next. Is that something you see often? Okay,
Definitely. Yeah,
cool.
because people are so interested in themselves and they're like, well, what about this and what about that? And it's often the work of, well, let's bring it back to, let's bring it back to basics. And also, we could spend months on your chart, months. And so it's really a question of what I'm always looking for is what are the echoes? What are the repeated themes and energies that I see that keep poking me, right? Because I don't believe in accidents. I don't believe in, random. It's like if there's a continued through line that I see in a chart, it's like that's big. That we need to talk about because again, your chart is talking about you on a soul level. Yes, it's revealing how you express yourself as a human being, but it's more than that. And what I like as well about looking at different parts is because to your point, like it's so easy to be like, I'm stubborn, or oh, Taurus, like kind of lazy or super hardworking, or especially I think as we get older we label ourselves and by extension we put ourselves in boxes and limit what's possible for us. I'll give a really silly example. When I lived in New York, and for a long time too, living in Santa Fe, like I was up at 6 a.m. That was what I did. And I worked out and I had this whole thing. And between winter and moving and just trying to be more gentle with myself, I'm not getting up as early anymore. And there have been a couple days where I've worked out midday, which for me is like wild. Okay. Wild. But it's this reminder of like, yeah, there's multiple parts to you. And we grow and we evolve and we change. Like that's what we're here for. I think our society, our human selves are like, we stay the same, we grow, it's finite, like straight arrow. And when you start to look at energy in your soul, you see it's dynamic, it's fluid, it's moving, it's topsy turvy. It changes, right? So what's fun about astrology is it's like, oh, well, that part of me makes sense. Like this makes sense, like that, you know. I'm curious, what's your sun and your moon and your rising or your ascendant? So
Yeah.
Taurus sun.
Taurus sun, Libra moon, Libra rising.
Oh, interesting.
So what does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It just is interesting data. I'm so curious about your chart in full because I'm wondering like what other energy is at play, just of little things that we've talked about or that I see in you. Um, our sun sign is our identity. It's how we shine. It's how we express ourselves. From work perspective, our sun sign typically relates to what people see in us. What's important to note about our sun sign, however, or it should be said that our sun sign is who we're becoming, right? Because our identity is changing, as I just spoke to. So you're a Taurus sun. You've been a Taurus sun. I imagine there's aspects of Taurus that you really resonate with and have resonated with throughout your life. And also, you will continue to become more of you, more of a Taurus as you move through your life.
Mhm.
So you can think of your sun sign as the destination, the end game. The sun radiates, right? It's what shines brightly. It tends to be what we present or show to others. Our moon, on the flip side, the moon rises at night. So the moon rules the territory of what's underneath the surface. The moon represents our emotions, how we feel, moreover, and more importantly than that, what we need, what makes us feel safe, what nourishes us and feeds us. So every planet in astrology is associated with a part of the body. The moon rules the belly and the breasts. Some women breastfeed their babies, and we all fill our bellies so that we're not hangry. So the moon is what's underneath, right? And it's interesting when we have, which most people do oftentimes, it's interesting when our moon and our sun are different because it speaks to this fact that how you present yourself or how you move through the world might be very different than what you need on the inside, right?
Oh, that
Might
is
be like
fascinating.
yeah. So I would say this, like Taurus, yes, the people that were like, you're stubborn, they're not wrong. Like, Taurus, one of the qualities of Taurus is stubbornness, but a way that that can express is also steadfastness and dedication. Taurus is the bull. It's hard to get moving, but once it moves, there's no stopping it. Taurus likes comfort and pleasure and the Buddha, excuse me, was a Taurus. So there's a desire for simplicity. Taurus is the most tactile of the zodiac. It rules the five senses. So it's very much of this earth. What we feel, what we see, what we, smell, what we taste. The reason that Taurus is also known for liking beautiful things is think about it. Taurus season, spring, like Aries season is the kickoff of spring formally, but it's usually not until May where the flowers pop and
Yeah.
the trees are green and the temperature's warm. So that's a little bit about your sun sign. I want to hear what you think about that in a second, but I'll just speak to that Libra energy. Libra is more outgoing, I would say, or more social than Taurus. Libra is about partnership, relationship, balance, harmony, beauty, fairness, justice. Libras don't really like to rock the boat. A Libra moon tells me that you're not, I'm speaking general, like swaths now, right? But Libra moon would kind of speak to this point of you really like things to be good. Like you do not like when the boat is rocked. It is very hard for you. Also, perhaps getting really upset when things feel unjust or unfair. Libra moon, Libra rising as well. So if our sun sign is the destination where we're going, our rising sign is how we move through the world. Rising sign is determined by the zodiac sign that was on the eastern horizon when you were born. So the sun and rising work together. But there's, just with those three, without even looking at your chart and where everything is, Taurus, somebody that really takes action based on your morals and what you stand for. Somebody that wants to, like both energies, Taurus and Libra, don't like a lot of flux, don't like a lot of turmoil, a lot of turnover. A question that I often ask my Taurus clients, and I'll ask it to you, is, what are you sacrificing for the sake of being safe and comfortable?
Ooh, ooh.
You don't have to answer, but I'm just gonna
But I
pop that
feel
there.
all of that.
Yeah.
Feel all of that.
And I would say as well, Libra could have a little bit of that, right? And so just right there, right? Like that would be a conversation point for us. That is a opening for you to journal on of, do I know this energy in me? Do I see it show up if I'm really honest? How does this energy come through as my strengths? Right? Like my ability to relate to other people, my ability to connect with people, my ability to make people feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And where do I see that I maybe fall into some traps sometimes? And what if that's not wrong? Because, by the way, what people don't realize is that the biggest hack to creating change, and whether it's big macro changes or habits or whatever, is to first just accept yourself as you are. The sooner that you're like, yeah, okay, this is me. Like, yeah, I make rash decisions. Like once you see it and normalize it without criticizing yourself, that's actually the way you start to change, because then you are in front of the habitual pattern, right? Like it's the same with journaling. It's like once you see something, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Versus that thing that's subconsciously ruling you. It's one and the same. I would say that astrology and journaling are similar in that they tap into the things that linger, that are there underneath the surface, and they're waiting for you. They're available to you, but they're not necessarily going to be like up in your face.
So that reminds me, when you're talking about being in being aware of things and
Yep.
accepting of ourselves, reminds me of the 3 guidelines I always ask people who journal with me to follow. I
Mm.
always ask them to be open, to be brave, and to be kind. To be open because we never know what we're going to find on the other side of our pen. We think we know sometimes, and there's a whole lot of days that I'm surprised at what comes out of me. Be brave because sometimes what we uncover doesn't feel very good. It's really those like, oh crap. Now here's the thing I have to go like do something about. Like,
Mhm.
oh, this is why I did that thing or whatever it is. But I always say that there's just enough space between our brains and the page to get the perspective we need. And when we're brave enough to shine some light on that thing, then we can figure out what we're going to do about it, if anything. Um,
Mhm.
and then to also be kind, because this is hard. It's hard work being ourselves and becoming ourselves and uncovering all of the magic in ourselves, and to just be really kind. And that is the part I think of my journaling journey I've most appreciated in this latest phase of my life, is the journey through journaling of self-discovery to self-compassion to self-love. That the more I know myself, the more compassion I have. The more compassion I have, the more I love myself, which makes me want to take better care of myself, makes me want to show up differently and better, makes me want to get to know myself even more. So do you have guidelines that you share with your or ask of your clients when they work with you?
I would say I don't have any set like formal guidelines. I do have an opening prayer that I always
Hmm.
recite as a way to make sure my clients and I are on the same page, and also invite spirit into the room. And it's always for self compassion, self celebration. So, similarly to kind of what you shared. But what I'm always telling people is, I've said it already, is just get curious. You don't have to, I think what I see with astrology often is that it becomes something that, even though it's the antithesis of what astrology represents, it becomes this tool that robs people of their own choice, in the sense that people are like, oh, well, this is happening astrologically, or an astrologer said this about me, or I read this about my energy on Google, and so like this is who I am. When really it's an opportunity to use your words, to open you up, to see yourself in a new way, to see different parts of yourself. And by the way, when you understand yourself through this lens, you also then can understand other people through this lens. The way that astrology has changed, the way that I perceive my parents or my friends or my part, like, it just creates this landscape where you're like, oh, they're not out to get me. I'm not out to get me either. This is just what it is. And what if, I think astrology also in that curiosity, it allows us to be open minded to things working out.
Ooh,
It's like, what if I assumed the best instead of assuming the worst?
yeah. It's like that shift from this is happening to me to this is happening
Happening
for
for
me.
Right, exactly. Um, and I think too, astrology can provide a context of why something has happened, which for some people provides a level of comfort and safety that few other things can. I'm not saying you always have to know why by any means. But similarly to getting feedback that I have a calming presence, I also get feedback that I make astrology really practical and really easy to understand and like able to use. And I think that that's also what I'm really passionate about. Is that to your point, it doesn't have to be woo woo or for the mystics or the spiritual ones or the people that aren't grounded with a full-time job or what have you. I think that everybody can benefit, especially in the landscape that we live in now. Everybody can benefit from a bit of wonder and a bit of magic and a bit of connection to something bigger than themselves. And I think a lot of people are searching for that as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely agree. So, on a day to day basis, how do you or how could someone
Mhm.
use astrology just on the regular? Like,
Mm,
it's one thing to go and have a reading and, learn about our chart and our energy and what all of this means, but then how do we use it?
great question. So that's when I would say, well, I'll answer this question two ways. One, when you start to learn more about yourself, you can observe in your day to day how you're showing up. You can also view your decisions that you need to make through that same lens, right? Like if you're somebody that your chart really reveals, you have a real capacity to take risks and to go for it and to be big and bold. Have you been playing it safe? Have you been quieting your light? Have you been holding back? Like you can use astrology to be like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to lean into this part of me that I might not know in my like day to day, but that exists energetically and I'm going to try it out. So that's one way is to really think about, how can I embody this energetic side of me as I move through my human world, as I like to say, or, your everyday normal life, because I'm very normal. I have a very like basic, I have the same challenges as everybody else. Um, and then on a macro level, you can tune into what's happening energetically. So, like what I like to work with is the seasons. So, for example, we're in Sagittarius season right now. Knowing what Sagittarius season represents, you can, again, how can I take action towards my goals with this in mind? Well, allowing yourself to be with the energy, I would say that it's a guidepost, it's an opportunity of support that you can lean into. So I know that, it's kind of a hard question to answer without details for somebody specifically, but I would say either leaning into this other version of you or staying true to yourself, right? Like not getting caught up in people pleasing, not worrying about, oh, could I have shown up in a different way? Like working on your own confidence and self esteem and self advocacy. And similarly, if you're tuned into what's happening on a big picture scale, it's kind of fun to be like, well, how can I let this inspire me or influence me or guide me? What if I didn't have to do it all by myself? What if I didn't have to have all the answers?
I love that because it's so easy to feel like we're on our own and we've got to do this by ourselves, even though we have our people. Ultimately, we're responsible for us, and it's a lot of it's a lot of pressure to be here and human and to do a good job. And I love the magic and wonder of knowing there are other things bigger than me that I can pull from and use, and I'm not doing this by myself.
1000%. Absolutely. I think life gets a lot harder when we think we have to do it alone and how fun and expansive to be like, "Oh, so I not only get to rely on my people and my community, but I also can rely on this thing that I can't see, but I can feel sometimes." Like, huh. Again, astrology is an opportunity. It's something to get curious about, it's something to play with. Like if it benefits you, lean in. Like that's I think my biggest wish for people is be open, try it. If you don't like it, okay. But again, I've never met somebody that didn't resonate with their chart. So how did you feel about that Taurus Libra quick highlight reel?
So, I I think you totally nailed me, like, slow to start, very steady. Um, what resonated with when you talked about the senses, because I feel like I have some senses that are more heightened than other people around me. I joke with my kids that I have this bionic sense of smell, and I can just for good or for ill, like smell things before other people can and more powerfully than other people can. I'm very sensitive to sounds and light and just stimuli coming in, and what's around me. Maybe that's related. Maybe I'm going off in the wrong direction and I'm just
No,
just a
absolutely not.
wackadoo.
Dead
But
on.
yeah, I like for also things to be calm and steady. I like to have a path. I like to walk the path. Um, and I stubbornly stay on the path often too long, even though I know it's not quite the right one. But I've already worked this hard to get this far. So I'm not a quitter and I'm not going to throw in the towel, which is how I stayed in a marriage that was not healthy for me for far too long.
Yeah. And that's examples of how Taurus energy shows up, right? For good, sometimes not as great. And when we have that context, it's like, oh, you didn't fail. Like you didn't mess up. Like, of course, that's how you would show up. Of course. And so, what does that open up for you? What does that allow for you? And what does that offer you moving forward? Like that's the work that opens up and can become possible when you use astrology and energy based practice to honestly support the more practical mentally focused practices because there's room for both. I really believe that.
Yeah, I love that so much. So, if somebody wants to know about their chart, they want to know what their energy is. How does someone go about working with you to make
Yeah.
that happen?
Absolutely. So I offer 60-minute astrology readings. So we dive deep into your birth chart. It's always catered to what you're interested in, what you want to learn about, where are you in your life, what kind of guidance are you seeking. I'll share a link with you that we can, yeah, Tanya, whenever I hear Virgo characteristics, it really resonates. Exactly. Astrology is a permission slip to be ourselves. I often work with people who have always put their success first and their priorities first, um, at the expense of themselves. And then they get to this point where they're ready to prioritize them and they don't know how to do that. It's like this scary moment of like, okay, I want to prioritize me, but who am I? Like, what is it that I want? I don't know how to really do this because I've always been a yes person, but a yes person to everybody else. So a 60-minute astrology reading is a great place to start. You can find that on my website, sofiaadler.com. And it's also one of the highlighted links in my LinkedIn profile. And that's a really awesome way, again, to boost your self-confidence, open your eyes to both who you are and also who you can be, and to have some fun and to learn to talk about yourself in a way to connect with yourself in a way that you maybe have never have before.
Very cool. So someone who's had a reading who
Mhm.
wants to learn more and dig more into it,
Yep.
what's the next step after that?
Great question. So each astrology reading really is just like a dip of the toe in the water. So you can either do another astrology reading. I would say astrology readings are for beginners and you know people who are familiar with astrology alike. And I also have a longer term coaching engagement, which is for people that are looking to create change. They're really looking to find a life that is aligned for them, that it's like a life where their inner world matches their outer world. And in that case, we use astrology as a guidepost throughout our sessions, throughout our months together, to really help you create that change, to do new things in your life, with confidence, with self compassion, connected to your energy the entire time. Because I have a master's in psychology, there's psychology worked in there, there's mindfulness and meditation worked in there, coaching, of course. But I would say that's really the way to work with me in terms of astrology. You can either do another birth chart session, whether you've had one before or not. I would say most of my clients have had a reading before. You can do a reading for your year ahead, for your birthday. You can gift them to people. And then there's also the opportunity for people who want high touch support to dive into more of a coaching engagement that has astrology laced throughout.
Very, very cool. Well, I am super excited. I know I'm going to be coming back and talking with you more about astrology and readings and all of the things. But thank you so much, Sophia, for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. I feel like I'm a little more understanding of what astrology is and how we can use it. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was such a pleasure. I love chatting with you. Keep me posted on what you uncover about the Taurus and Libra and all the other things. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds great. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Bye.